So once again, I'm the VP of SARCA. I'm also a registered behavior technician, and I got my BA in psychology last year with a minor in criminal justice. And right now I'm doing my master's in rehab counseling, so in this same program that I'm going to talk about today. And I've also had a 2-year volunteer experience at FIU CTP. If you guys don't know what that is, but you're interested a little bit in the criminal justice system with a little bit of psychology on the side, let me know and we can talk about it afterwards as well. So first I want to talk to you about the CACREP accreditation. I put this in the beginning slide, and this is very, very important, not just for this program, but whatever program you are looking into in terms of your master's. Make sure if it's a psychology program that it is CACREP accredited. What makes the program different with this accreditation is that this accreditation really encourages students or scholars to look at people from a broader spectrum. You get a lot of extra training on multicultural and gender identity, which is very vital at the moment, like, because we're developing as a culture in that sense. So other programs don't really make that much of a focus in these areas, but CACREP specifically targets these two training areas so that we can service a broader community. The program itself is Rehabilitation Counseling. You will be working with people that have disabilities or chronic disorders. This is not limited to physical disabilities, though. It is also mental illness. So anything that falls into that category. Someone that has lost their independence or is not able to function to the best of their ability because of some sort of disorder, whether it was from birth or it was acquired afterwards. And you'll be working usually in a community setting, whether it is at a state VR or agencies or private rehabilitation centers. I put the median salary there, which is about $45,000, depending on the location. And here are some of the actual jobs that you can obtain as a rehab counselor. You can work for marriage and family therapy. You can be occupational therapy. You can do social work. Any of these will work, as well as obviously VR counseling. When you take this program, the credential exit exam that you will take is the CRC, which is actually a national credential. That means that you can graduate here at FIU in Miami or in Florida, and you can work with that same credential anywhere else in the United States. So this is really important because there's a lot of programs that offer you certification here, licensure here in Florida, but if you want to go to other places, you might have to do additional courses or something else. For example, I know that if you do the LMHC, you are able to practice here in Florida, but if you go elsewhere, their regulations might, like the law might differ, so you might have to take either additional classes or do additional certification. This is a small scope of what the program entails. It is a 2.5-year program, so it's very fast. And these are some of the classes. You have human development across the lifespan, personality theories, educational, vocational counseling, ethical training, medical aspects. So this one is one of my favorite classes because it really encompasses everything that you will be working with and how to see things from not just the medical perspective, but also the psychosocial perspective in terms of like, okay, a person might have a disability and it might limit their physical capabilities, but in what other ways does it affect their life really? Like, how does that make them feel? How does it make them develop? How do they interact with their community? So that class in particular is super, super interesting. It was one of my favorites so far. Like I said before, you will be taking the CRC. A really cool thing about our program at FIU is that 100% of the students who have taken it have passed it. So that's a good indication that the program works and that you have a really high chance at passing your test. The 2-year program, the 2.5-year estimate time also includes a period of practicum and internship. So once you're done with that, you take your CRC and you're good to go to start working. These are just the course evaluations that I found for the past few years. You can see that most people rated the program as excellent. And then the cost of the program, if you did not have a scholarship, is about $455 per credit, which comes out to an average about $27,000. This is without a scholarship. But now I'm going to talk to you about the best part of this program, which is the scholarship. I was actually told that now we have a new scholarship called Project A.B.L.E. I forgot to change that. I apologize. But it's basically the same thing. So I can update that information later in our website on Panther Connect. The best thing about this program is that it offers this scholarship, Project A.B.L.E, which is a grant that covers full tuition and provides stipends for you to like work during the semester, either to buy books or to purchase your um to pay for your CRC exam depending on which semester. We have a question here. How many students get accepted into the program? This particular track, you doesn't have like a lot of people applying to it. I don't know why, because it's an amazing opportunity. But I don't think that there's a limit of as to how many can apply or be accepted. I will double check that though. Give me 1 second. So another cool thing about the grant, remember it's a grant, so you don't have to pay it back. A cool thing about the grant is that they also sponsor for you to go to conferences. So this year, for example, we were scheduled to go to 2 conferences, one in San Diego, and the other one I forgot where it was. I think it was San Francisco. But unfortunately, because of COVID, that fell through. But the cool thing about it is that the grant also covers expenses. Like they'll cover your travel over there, your stay there, and they even allow you to present at these conferences. So it's really an amazing, amazing opportunity. A lot of people tell me that, you know, it sounds too good to be true, that it has to be some weird kind of scheme. There really isn't any catch. The only thing that I would think it might make you think about the program is that the way that you pay back for the grant is that you have to work for the state VR for 2 years, depending on how long the grant was sponsored you. Honestly, the first time that I heard this, I thought to myself, that means guaranteed employment. So I was honestly even happier. So to me, that's not really a catch. It's just a bonus that you get to actually have guaranteed employment once you graduate, because you get to work for them. And then once you are done with that time requirement, you're able to do whatever else you want. And now please welcome Isaac-Ike Zadikoff. I hope I'm saying that right. He's an FIU alumni. He did a master's in rehab counseling, which is this program, and mental health counseling. So give him a little hand.
Hi, my name is Isaac-Ike Zadikoff. I'd like to thank Dayana Fernandez for inviting me to present on 2 different topics, basically what it's like to have disabilities and what to expect in the rehabilitation counseling field. As Dayana mentioned, I graduated from FIU. I graduated with my bachelor's in political science and English, and I graduated with my master's in rehab counseling from that program, like she mentioned. My CRC, passed the test, one of the 100%, and I'm currently working toward in mental health counseling. The first thing I want to mention is I have 2 disabilities. I was born 25, which is very premature, and I was born with retinal prematurity. This means that I'm totally blind in my right eye and totally blind in my left eye. There is a distinction, and I have a good amount of peripheral vision and very little central vision in my left eye. So sometimes it might look like I'm not looking at the camera because of my visual impairment. Around 1.5 years old, I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. My parents noticed I had mobility issues, so they took me to the doctor, and he diagnosed me with cerebral palsy. So, long story short, to make a very long story short, growing up in elementary school, middle school, high school, what it's like to have disabilities is a very loaded question. But the main kind of point I want to take away is that I had a lot of support system, and this goes back to one of the classes that Dayana mentioned, which was medical aspects and psychosocial aspects of people with disabilities. Part of my support system was my family, and also a lot of the teachers and paraprofessionals within the education system who taught me how to find resources, how to use adaptive equipment. Some of these pieces of equipment you might learn in the classes if you decide to apply for the program. And then some of it was attending conferences, like she had mentioned, through the grant. But for me, it was conferences that I attended through school and things like that. And through those conferences, I was able to kind of understand the best equipment for me. So nowadays, what I'm using are loft strength crutches to get around, which are essentially crutches with a slot for me to kind of put my wrists inside so that I can have a little bit more support when I'm walking. Due to my cerebral palsy, I can't walk long distances. It affects my legs and it affects my fine motor functions in my hands. So it does take me longer to get around, and I also don't walk a long distance. My visual impairment has affected, obviously, my ability to see a great distance, but also my ability to read regular size print, see a regular size screen. So when I'm using my own computer, I use adaptive equipment. I use a program called Zoom Text, which helps me to read what's on the screen by magnifying the computer. And also, it speaks to me what's on the screen. So it'll read to me, like if I'm in a Microsoft Word document, it'll read the entire document. And if it works on the internet, it works with Adobe, it's a really useful tool for me. And it's basically how I manage on the computer. Without it, it's, I wouldn't say impossible, but almost impossible for me to use a computer well enough. So I would say those are the two main pieces of equipment I use. But to get into just a little bit further detail, from the social perspective of it, it was always, I would say it was always a unique experience for me growing up with disabilities, in the sense that I had a close set of friends, and not that I didn't, get along with others or anything like that. I wasn't like that. It's just that I had a close set of friends, and I didn't get too close to others growing up because I was always afraid of the situation. And a lot of people felt uncomfortable around me. So there's a whole other aspect to it. And then as I got older, I got more comfortable with the whole thing. And this is me having disabilities pretty much from birth. So, and there's still a level of acceptance that goes along with it. And it's really hard to quantify into words, into a measured amount of words. I could talk about this all day. We don't have the time for it. But the main point I want to get across is there's a lot of, having disabilities requires a lot of acceptance on your own part as well as other people's part. And the main point of the program, I think that it tries to get across, is that once you are done with the program, you're a catalyst for that change. You're a catalyst for that acceptance. You're a catalyst to move society forward, to explain to others that it's okay to see people with disabilities like you see anybody else. That's essentially what I took from the program. Other people might take other things from the program, but that's what I got from it. Now, as far as what to expect from a rehab counseling perspective, I would say it depends what field you're going into. For me, I work in a private rehabilitation office. We are contracted by the state. So we're contracted by the Florida Department of Education. And we work, hand in hand, essentially as VR, but through a privately contracted grant. So the main thing I would expect coming into the field of vocational rehabilitation counseling is time management. That's the biggest advice I could give, is you have to be able to manage your time, and you have to be able to understand that just because there may be a diagnosis based on a piece of paper given to you from a psychological evaluation, that doesn't mean that people with the same disabilities are going to need the same amount of attention. People need different levels of attention. Some people have more independence, some people have less independence. You have to be able to manage your time effectively and almost prevent things from happening before they happen, because as a counselor, you tend to have 80 to 100 to 120 cases. I've heard of some counselors having 140, 160 clients. So you got to be able to manage that effectively. And it's just a case of being able to understand who needs what. And so that would be the biggest thing to expect. But also, there's going to be days where you're going to feel really good about what you do, because you can see the impact you're having on others. You could see how the services that you provide as a rehabilitation counselor, because as rehab counselors, we act as liaison almost between the people who are service providers, who like a placement provider, the person who helps others find the jobs. We act as a liaison between the placement provider and the client. And so you can almost see a transition in a client when you work with them from the beginning to the end, and you see how they get more and more excited as they get closer to finding a job. People with disabilities want employment just like anybody else. So to have that level of independence as a client gets closer, I've seen it multiple times where they're like, "Thank you so much, thank you for your help," and they get really excited. And it makes me feel good as a counselor. It really does. If you guys want to ask questions, so I'll leave it up to if anyone has any questions, they can just speak out loud.
If you want, you can also type them in the chat and I can read them for Ike.
Thank you.
I agree with you, though, that it's very, very rewarding. In my experience, I've worked at CTP with inmates, and it's not really the same. Obviously, it's a volunteer experience type of thing. But it is true that, seeing the change in someone and seeing their effort, the effort that they put into their change, really, it goes much, much noticed, because it's a really big deal when you see someone, striving to change and to improve their condition or their situation.
It's a very gratifying experience.
It is. If no one has any questions, we can move on for a little bit. And, Ike, you're more than welcome to stay, but if you need to leave for any reason, that's okay as well. I can just relay any questions to you if that's okay. But again, you're welcome to stay.
All right. Thank you for everyone's time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and pleasure and a
Of
chance to meet
course.
all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're gonna continue talking about the program a little bit. Um, give me 1 second. I saw another question. Okay, I have a little video that I wanted to share with you guys that also connects that talks about rehabilitation counseling. It's a short video, so if you can just bear with me for a few minutes. And after that, I'm gonna check some questions in the chat in the meantime. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them and I'll answer them now while we watch the video.
She was with friends at a barbecue outside and just randomly was shot by a stranger. Because of it, was paralyzed.
A gentleman who was a veteran. When he came to our program, he had been homeless for years and was heavily involved in using controlled substances.
An individual who had a recent motorcycle accident. He couldn't use his hands anymore. He was spiraling into depression. He wanted to get back to work. He didn't see a path.
Rehabilitation counselors are uniquely qualified to do what we do. I think we're the only profession that specifically addresses how to help individuals with disabilities fit into the workplace and how to make a workplace more receptive to people with disabilities.
The art of rehabilitation counseling, in my opinion, is really bringing together all the pieces of the puzzle, knowing that the individual is whole, but may need some supports out there. So that could mean negotiation with an employer, that could mean counseling for the individual. It could mean getting them in touch with community resources so that that individual is supported to their fullest potential.
You have to find a job that is within the abilities and current skills of the client, not just any job.
We want them to know that we're there, we're in their corner, and we want to assist them to ultimately obtain employment.
What I do is to provide guidance and counseling and just support for the employers and understanding what it's like to return back to work after having a significant event happen to you. You know, things like, what will my employer think of me? What will my coworkers say? I've been off work for so much time. Creates a lot of anxiety and can be a barrier for returning back to work. But with support, it can be easily overcome if everybody's on the same page.
A lot of times what we're presented with is a jigsaw puzzle that's been taken apart or knocked apart by some tragic event in that person's life that changed who they are, how they identify themselves, what they're able to do. As rehab counselors, we pick up those pieces and we put them back together.
I sent one more letter, but I took that moment and saw the opportunity to really find out, did he want to return to work? Did he want to return to that employer? He used to go out into the field and inspect airplanes, but he couldn't do that physically. What were some of his goals? And in relation to that, what were some of his barriers? It took between 6 to 8 months. His home was being modified. His church was helping. His car was being modified. He was in a wheelchair. He was learning so much information of how to get back to his normal life. And work was a big component, but everything kind of had to be coordinated together.
She came to us after she suffered a gunshot wound. She wanted to go to college. She wanted to be a student. We assisted with the modification of her van, and also we paid for her tuition and fees at the local college. She obtained her degree, and she's very independent. She has very limited use of her arms and her hands, but she can drive. She's able to do her paperwork, her reports. It's just amazing the things that she's accomplished.
I don't think when he walked in the door that he thought he would be making a life-altering decision. As rehab counselors, we identified, well, what are some of the root causes that led to you being homeless and not being able to hold down a full-time job. So we directed that individual to substance abuse counseling at the VA. We worked with homeless program services to look for housing options. We identified a local hospital that was in need of a receptionist. He was thrilled to have that job. He started to become more independent. As he became more stable in the job, he could pay his own rent, and we could kind of see the pride and the dignity coming back to that veteran.
Sometimes people need supports, and they need the help, and they need the guidance, and they need the knowledge to know how to fulfill their true potential.
A lot of what rehabilitation counseling is about is empowering individuals to be independent and to make their own decisions in life.
At any moment, we can be involved in an accident where we will be disabled ourselves. And I think we also have to let society know that we're one accident away from being a customer.
There is a reason why I'm in this field, to help others.
Okay, so that was just to show a little bit more of a perspective on what to expect from the field. Honestly, like Ike was saying earlier, it is very, very rewarding. I have worked with two populations already that are not fully functional with my ABA work, which I mostly work with kids in the spectrum, and then at CTP, which, like I said earlier, I work with inmates. These people, well, inmates in particular, had been in prison for at least 25 years. Some of them had been in there for 40 years straight. So they have really lost touch with current technology, current resources, and just society. So for them to be eligible for parole and then to be released back into their old community, but with all of these new things, it really made them lose their sense of independence. So like I was saying earlier, like to see these two populations, whether it is ASD children or, you know, someone at a correctional facility, to see them make these steps, to take the steps necessary to improve, and to see them make the effort that it takes to really change on like a fundamental level, it goes beyond me. I mean, I don't know how they do it, but it is very inspirational. So just to go back into the program, these are the admission requirements. You need at least a 3.0 GPA for the last 60 credits that you got. A very good plus is that you do not need to take the GRE. Yes. You do need some documents, so an applicant statement, like a personal statement or letter of intent. You need 3 letters of recommendation and a resume, and then an interview. The interview works like this. You get selected. I mean, once you submit all of your documents, you get either selected or not for the initial interview. When I applied right after graduation, and I had like a week's notice. So I took the opportunity, I applied, and I got into the interview. It was about 80 people that were invited to the initial interview. And then out of these 80 people, I think about 60 or 40 got selected for a second interview. For this second interview, it was much more thorough. You know, you had to do some tasks. You had to write an essay with a topic that they gave you during the interview process. So it was kind of weird, but you get to enjoy it because it's with a group of people. So I thought it was going to be like a one-on-one, and I was really freaking out. But it was a group of people. So you go in with a cohort, which is what they're doing now these past semesters. So you feel a bit safer. Everyone is there for the same reason. So, you know, everyone's a bit nervous, but it helps that you're with a group of people. And then out of those, about 20 or 25 people are actually selected for the program, for the counselors education program itself. It is divided into 3, and honestly, rehab counseling is the least competitive, I guess, because there's not a lot of people that apply. And again, I don't know why, because it's an amazing field. I know that I'm biased, but so these are the requirements. And now I'm gonna show you there's a question here. I will get to it in just 1 second. I'm going to show you an example of each one of them. So for the personal statement should be like a detailed letter where you talk about your personal achievements and why the program is a good fit for you based on your interest and qualifications. So basically, you don't want to write about, you know, the job that you had when you were in high school. That's not relevant really. But you want to talk, it's sort of like a CV, sort of. But you want to talk about what your interests are and how you would be an asset for the program. Basically, like, why do you need to earn this spot in the program and the scholarship? When it comes to your resume, make sure that it is up to date and that it includes relevant information only. So, like I said, no jobs from 10 years ago. Nobody cares about those. I'm sorry. But yeah, basically, the rule of thumb that I always use is the last 2 jobs if they are relevant. If not, then just really write down what is most relevant. I will talk about it more in a little bit. And then 3 letters of recommendation. There has been other workshops that I have assisted where people say that, oh, just, you know, talk to a professor, tell them what you want them to write, and then they'll write it. I honestly don't recommend that because you want the letter to be written by someone that really got to know you. So what you could do if you are about to graduate, like if you're graduating this semester, then try to find that professor that you kind of connected the most with. If not, if you still have a semester to go, then try for that 1 semester left that you have, or whatever time you have left, to really connect with your professors, to talk to them, to ask questions, to participate. I know it can be a little bit of a drag, but you want them to remember you. And when you come up to them to ask them for a letter, you want them to definitely be like, oh, I remember that girl, you know, or I remember that guy. It doesn't actually have to only be professors or like academic figures. It could be an employer, or it could be even an A.B.L.E member. If you are a member of, say, SARCA or any other honor society, you can have an A.B.L.E member. Like if you were really active in the organization, you can actually ask them to write you a letter of recommendation. Let me get to this question here. It says, would this program enable me to work with children? I would love to get a master's that allows me full interaction with children. Actually, I think so, because since this community is really broad. So like we were saying before, you do get to work with a lot of different types of people with disabilities. So if your ultimate interest is working with children, there is definitely a way to get you into that field. Actually, when you do your internship and practicum, you get a list, but you get to choose where you want to go to do your internship and practicum. And depending on those places, you can look into places that work with kids that have disabilities. And then usually what ends up happening is that wherever you do your internship, a lot of people end up just working for those places. So it is a good rule of thumb to try to find something for your internship or practicum that you're interested in, so that you end up kind of working there, or at least have experience for a similar field that you want to go into for an actual job. I'm going to show you guys examples of my documents that I submitted. This is just part of my statement. It was actually 2 pages long, but it's okay. It could be a little bit lengthy. Just, you know, regular format. You put your name here, your email, or how to contact you, the address, and then the person that you're addressing it to. This is by the way, this is the director of the program, Dr. Valerie Russell. And it's very, very important to address the person that you're talking to in the letter. So it is better to address her directly than to say to whom it may concern. That's like a very old kind of way of writing letters. But now, if you know the person's name, like if you know the contact information, definitely add it, because it makes you stand out from the rest. You can read this. You can take a second to read this. It basically just talks about, how you are a good candidate to receive the scholarship and why you should be in the program. Talk a little bit about your skills, your involvement in your community or in your honor societies that you've been in, or any student organization. Anything that makes you stand out, basically, you want to write it down. And kind of tie it back to how this will work for you with this program. Like how does this help your career path? At the end of the letter, you should always write your name again. You can sign it, and it's a good measure to put your email or like your information again in the bottom. Because that way when someone finishes reading it, they can just see it again, and it's easier than having to go back to the other page. This is an example of a resume. This one is old, so I'm sorry about the dates, but like I said earlier, it's very important that you have it up to date. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the stuff here. I put numbers, but you should not have numbers. This is just for me to have a reference. So for number 1, you want to put your personal goal. People used to use objective for that heading, and that is okay. But now it looks a little bit more professional if you just talk about your professional goal. Then whatever follows the professional goal should be your strongest next trait. So for example, if you graduated with a 4.0, or if you have killer work experience that totally relates to this field, you want to put that next. In this case, I had a lot of extracurriculars, so I thought that might put me a little bit ahead. So I put that second, but you want to put whatever, whatever your strongest suit is for your second thing. And then obviously you put your work experience. Like I said, the last 2 things are the best. And then if you took any gaps, for example, if your last job was, say, in 2017 because you were doing your bachelor's, you want to put that in as well. Like, I took a break because I was working on my bachelor. You never want to put like a weird gap that nobody knows what it is. And then for proficiencies, anything that you're certified in, any extra perks that you got while you were doing your BA or your AA. Then at the bottom, you should always say that references are available upon request. I always tell anybody that I'm helping write a resume that, there's really no reason why you should give them that information for them to instigate if they don't need it. So you just write that down, and then if they do need it, you can go ahead and provide them. They also have your 2 last work experiences, so they can contact them if necessary. But you don't have to put anything else, really. Also, try to keep it within 1 page. If you notice, this font is a bit smaller because I don't think I used 12. I used like 11.5 to make it fit into 1 page, because it looks better than having like a 2-page resume. Always try to keep it all in 1 page. And then this is an example of a recommendation letter. So in this case, the girl that wrote it for me did write to whom it may concern, because she didn't particularly know. But a good way of making this recommendation letter very good and beefy is to tell the person that's writing it why you think that you're fit for the program. Try to talk to them about what inspired you to be part of the program, why you're so eager to join, and then based on that and your own experience with that person, they should be able to write a really good recommendation letter. This person right here was actually my supervisor at my job. So, it was perfectly acceptable to submit this. And, like I said, I had a 1 week's notice to submit everything. So I didn't really have a lot of people to request the recommendation letters from, but this worked like a charm and I got right in. So I was very, very happy. Since we're recording this presentation, I'm gonna upload the presentation on our Panther Connect when we're done. And I will also make these 3 documents available. There is also an official application that you need to fill out for the scholarship, which I can send it to you guys if you need it. Like if you're interested in applying. And then if you need any help filling it out, I can also help you out. I have no problem with that. For more info on how to apply, like if you have any questions about just applying to graduate school in general, this is the link. And if you're interested in beginning the application process for this program, you can take a picture of the QR code, which is going to take you right to that page. There is a fee. I'm not sure if it's I think it's $30 or between $30 and $50 for applying. That is non-refundable, but it's not as hefty as some other universities that I've seen. So it is definitely good. The deadline is next Sunday, this Sunday coming up. So this is why we wanted to do this today, because we wanted to make sure that if you guys are interested, you apply as soon as possible. And like I said, because you're probably gonna get spooked, I had about the same amount of time to do my application, so don't freak out, okay? Since we are close with the director, we can kind of put in word, like if you're really, really interested and you're just struggling to get that last recommendation letter, we can try to, get some leeway in there, maybe see if they can wait for you a few extra days to submit your last recommendation letter. Everything else you should be completing already on the website, so it should be easy peasy. So that is the deadline for the program. And then we're planning on having a movie night on the Friday the 13th next week, and having a virtual Friendsgiving, which is part of our November events. So if you're interested, please let us know. Remember that to join SARCA, you don't have to pay anything, any fees. All you need to be is a graduate student. We welcome anybody that's a graduate student. But if you want to come to any of our events, you're more than welcome to attend. Does anybody have any questions as of right now? I am free. You can unmute yourself if you want, and I can take any questions that you have regarding the program. For the work obligation, what do you mean? Like how do you pay back the loan? It is for every year that the grant pays for your program, you work 2 years for the VR. I'm not 100% sure about the rolling admission. I will look into it. If you want to leave me your email, if you want to private message me your email, I'll contact the director and let you know. The program will start in the spring, and you start with a cohort as well. So anybody that's applying right now will start in the spring, and then you start with a cohort. So it's you and a group of people from the other 2 tracks. It's really helpful because that cohort really becomes your family, because you take a lot of classes together. So it's really cool to have like a support system within, when you're doing this type of master's program, especially if you're just graduating. Any other questions?
I have a
Yeah, go ahead.
I see in the presentation you talked about vocational therapy, and
Yes.
I wanted to know how does this program work alongside with that? Does it allow you to become one?
I believe that for occupational therapy as itself, you need to have a separate like certification, but the way that they are both kind of parallel is that occupational therapy kind of teaches people with disabilities their like daily life functioning skills. And what rehab counseling does is we work with those same individuals that have these limitations to kind of like their either physical or emotional disabilities or impairment. We work through them so that once the occupational therapy comes in, they are already able to learn those new skills. So that's kind of how they are kind of parallel. If you are still completing your BA, it's fine. We accept new students every semester, fall, spring, and summer. So it just really depends on what year you're graduating, then you would apply, and you would become part of the cohort for the following semester. If you're graduating in the summer, then again, you would apply during the summer, and during the fall, you would start your cohort. No, the applications for November 1st are only for those that are that want to start in spring. So, for example, I graduated summer of 2019, and I started in fall of 2019. So I'm completing right now my first year in the program. I have a year and a half to go.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm completing my BA in psychology in December, but I already have a master's degree in another field. I do work with inmates and also, in the health field as an interpreter.
Okay.
And what I want to know is, do people with masters get any credit towards their program, provided that is something similar?
We would have to ask the director as well. So if you want, you can private message me your email too, because I am not 100% sure. I know that since it is a vocational rehabilitation program, it's kind of, because it's only 60 credits, so I don't know if any of those credits could carry over, but I would be more than glad to ask for you and just let you know.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Of course. If you're finishing up in spring of 2021, I am not sure at what point they will have the dates for the next enrollment, but it should be at the end of spring, so that you would start in the summer cohort. An ideal candidate, like I said, just have some sort of qualifications that make you stand out a little bit from the rest. If you are involved with any honor societies on campus or any organization that has to do with psychology, that really puts you ahead of the game. um, and just any involvement in your community or any volunteer experience that you may have really make you stand out from the rest. And like I said, um, it is not a very crowded um, program for some reason that is not unknown to me, but um, like for example, when I did my interview, there was only, I think it was 3 people that wanted to do the rehab track, and 2 of us got in. But this is from like a broader, because we had also the counseling, the school counseling and mental health. So it was a group of, like a larger group of people, but just of us were rehab counseling. Any other questions? No, of course. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, I will be sharing this in our Panther Connect. If anybody wants to leave me their email, I will ask those questions to Dr. Rosso, and I will contact you and let you know. And again, if you are interested in enrolling, just contact us with any questions. Once again, the deadline is this Sunday, but it is possible, so trust me on that. You can definitely do it if you are graduating this semester. If you cannot pass the exam, I believe you will have to retake it. That's really the only thing. I don't think that you have to take any extra classes or anything. You would just have to retake it again. They usually give you a lot of material for you to study, and there's a lot of one-on-one support with the director herself to make sure that you pass it. And like I said, we do have a 100% passing rate. So, that speaks volumes for any university program, especially at this level. But in the case that you are not able to pass it on your first try, you would be able to just take it again. It is like $300 to take the exam, so that's the only problem that you would have to pay again. If you guys don't mind, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. Would you mind letting me take a picture of everybody for our website? All right, awesome. So if there's no more questions, like I said, you guys are free to contact us. Let me put back our contact information. So if you need to reach us for any reason to ask any questions, you can do so by emailing either SARCA or the FIU graduate program, graduate admissions, or you can email me if you prefer. And thank you so much, guys, for coming and for waiting about that hiccup before I joined in. But we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a great night, guys.
Bye.